Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for coming down. Feel free to ask whatever you feel is necessary, within reason.
We've got questions lined up since training camp, Steve. With Andreas, how much interest was there in him, and what ultimately made you pull the trigger?
Well, I guess we're trying to rebuild the team. We're trying to add draft picks and prospects. We got to decide, everybody has a value. Some players have more valuable. Some players are more marketable than others. And if we're trying to rebuild, we're trying to add draft picks and prospects, you got to go specifically to the players who are most in demand. And for whatever reason, Andreas was several teams, I won't give you specifically, but several teams had inquired and expressed a serious interest where it kind of made, the teams call about virtually every player. This was where it seemed like this one could make sense for the Detroit Red Wings in the short term and in the future. So, again, I would say maybe he garnered the most interest, kind of made the most sense from our perspective and the return we were going to get, that he would be the player that we could part with.
The way he plays, gift and butts and all that is all theoretical, but if this team was in a different state, if you guys were in a contending state, his game, his offensive upside, is he somebody you would like to keep maybe down the road? Is it just his game didn't fit where you guys want to rebuild?
No, it's not so much his game, it's where we are today. Like, we're rebuilding. If we were in this situation, if we were a playoff team or contending for a playoff spot, now in all likelihood we wouldn't be sellers, so to speak. We haven't made the playoffs for a few years. We're obviously not going to make the playoffs this year, so that's really dictated what we did here. And then ultimately, you have to decide, who are we going to keep, and if we're going to move guys. We're not going to move just for the sake of moving them. We need to, weigh off what the return is for each player. And ultimately, obviously, the return was 2 second-round picks, and we felt that was a good value here for what we're trying to do.
Steve, why don't you think it clicked for you this season here?
I don't really know, Ted. It was a difficult year. One, came into training camp, had it wasn't a major injury, but a minor injury that nagged him throughout the preseason. And we came in early in the season, and actually, if you recall, and I can't remember the game specifically, but numerous scoring chances, they just didn't go in early. And honestly, nothing has really clicked for us in any way. It's just been a bad year, and what could go wrong has gone wrong. And I don't think I'm not singling out Andreas Athanasiou. Mostly he dealt with injuries and couldn't get into a rhythm. And then we dealt with other injuries and trying to figure out who's going where and who's going to play. And the season just flies by. Our schedule is you play so many games in short periods of time, and it's hard to get things turned around. You just don't, you don't get that practice time. You don't get those breaks, and before you know it, you're 60 games into it, and you're at the trade deadline. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not in a position that I had to do anything. You kind of, anticipate, in any trade, what's the return today? Okay, we can wait until the draft, see what that may be, or we can wait next year or the year after, or never make a trade, and kind of make a decision now based on what we think the value of the player is and what our return is potentially could be. What would be different at the draft would be the next time we'd like to make a move, and felt like the 2 second-round picks, the value of those picks is, in our minds, was good enough return to make that trade today.
Steve, does it facilitate Ken Holland knows these players better than anybody when you're talking to somebody who knows the players you're trying to sell so well?
Yeah, so, Kenny knows him really better than I do. He's been here a little longer than I have and worked with them, so it wasn't so much that, a lot of, in situations you kind of, as general managers, you're talking about the player, you give them a feel for them. Ultimately, are we trying to sell the player? I guess somewhat, but I try not to BS each other too much. But in this case, Kenny knows the player. It's just his decision. Does he fit for them? And that was totally up to Kenny and the other staff where he fit in for them.
The value of the second-round pick, there's a lot of drafts have been half traded in the second round. Now, you hit the two throw off when you were with YB. and the thing with AA, he put in the right spot. You put him with Connor McDavid, he had 30 goals last year, he might take off. So I guess the point of that long question is there could be short-term gain and a bit of risk with the second round pick to get the value back.
Yeah, potentially. We don't know who those picks are going to be. Ultimately, I believe, you get as many picks as you can. You get as many the highest picks you can. Just increase your odds. And I don't know. We're rebuilding. We got to give up something if we want to be a good team 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And somewhere along the way, we're going to have to hit on some of these picks. And the only way to do it is to keep them and get more. So, Double A can go to Edmonton. He's going to. They have good options to play with, and he could potentially put up big numbers. And I hope, for him and for Kenny and the Edmonton Oilers, I hope it works really well for them. Ultimately, we got we're accomplished what we wanted to do. And hopefully, whether it's the seconds, the thirds, somewhere along the way, we need some of these guys to some of these picks to pan out for us. And simply to sit there and hope that our first rounder is going to work out every year. We need to do better than that. And the reality is our first rounder is not going to work out every year. So I can't tell you where they're going to come from, but we need the picks, and we'll keep adding them where we can for the time being.
Did you get done what you wanted to get done today? Like, did you think you could do more? Did you wonder you could even do this much? Like, compared to going into where you stand now, are you pleased or got what you wanted?
We're hoping to add picks. We're hoping to add the highest picks we could. I don't know if in general, I think we accomplished what we wanted. We do everything we wanted, not necessarily, Well, I would love to have acquired a first-round pick. I wasn't able to do that. We had other unrestricted free agents that we would consider, moving. Generally, teams in our situation, you're unrestricted. You explore, even if you want to sign them, you explore moving them, and maybe you re-sign them in the summer. So we weren't able. Mike Green being unrestricted. We were able to get what we felt was reasonable value in return for Mike. And then, talking about the core of our team, who you can decide for yourself what the core of the team is. Weren't necessarily looking to do anything with them unless it was a real good return, and we didn't really have any discussions on those other players.
You touched on this a bit, but I just want to crystallize it. I think you have 6 picks in the first 3 rounds this draft. You have extra picks in the next draft. That's the core of what this is going to take, right? And I know you won't put timelines on it, but this is a years-long process of collecting picks, hitting in the draft, developing these guys, and it's going to be a while before those second-round picks show up in the NHL, right, and make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So, without putting a specific timeline, what's a reasonable expectation for fans for how long and how methodical you're going to have to be to do this rebuild?
Nick, I can't give you, I can't say it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. I just don't know. We don't, we're going to pick in June. We don't know who those players are going to be. We're probably going to pick in the top 4, and I can't tell you which player it's going to be. If we're picking 4, we're picking 1. We don't know yet. So it just, again, I've said it's going to take time. How much time, I don't know, and I can't give you a specific. But what we're going to do now, we're trying to acquire more draft picks, to acquire more prospects, and turn the draft picks into prospects and develop the prospects into NHL players. If along the way, if we can add a free agent here or there that whether it's a younger free agent or an older guy that helps the young guys and expedites the process, or we can make a trade somewhere down the line, even involving our younger players, that speeds things up, that maybe we turn one player into 2 players, maybe younger, maybe not as advanced. We'll look at those type of things, but it's just going to take a long time. You look at the top teams in the league. The St. Louis Blues won the Cup last year. They were at that thing for a long time to win a Cup. Washington the year before. Tampa, Steven Stamkos, Victor Hedman were the first and second pick in the draft 10 or so years ago. They're challenging for the Stanley Cup, and that's the amount of time it takes to get there.
I guess that's my point, right? It's going to take time. It's going to be methodical. When you took over in Tampa Bay, you had Stamkos and Evan already, you had Calgary, you had San Luis, and you still turned over that roster for 2, 3, 4 years before you started getting where you wanted to be, correct? So it's not even fair comparison.
Yep.
Is this
I don't think it's any more involved. I knew what I was getting into, and I think I have a general idea of what it takes to build a team and how to go about it. You need a little bit of luck, try and minimize your mistakes, and that speeds it up a little bit. But the reality is, even in the best organizations don't get everything right. There's a lot of unpredictability in it, I guess. Like we, believe it or not, some of the decisions we make, we put a lot of time and effort into them, and they don't work. And you look back and why, and we're dealing with young men that get injured, and a lot of things can happen. So it's not perfect.
A bunch of teams have made coaching changes this season. You've stuck with back to Jeff.
Mhm.
What do you like about how he's doing his job and why?
Well, number one, I've enjoyed working with them. When I came in last summer, we talked about our team, what my expectations were, what we hope to do. So again, I don't know if I think I did an interview earlier or recently and talked. It's unfair to judge Jeff Blashill on our team's record. It is. Like, I put this team together. I had expectations for the year. My expectations. I don't think this team is a playoff team. Honestly, a lot of things will have to go right for us to be a playoff team at the start of the year. Well, obviously that hasn't happened, and a lot of things went wrong that we necessarily didn't foresee, whether it be injury or whatnot. So I can tell you that Jeff has done a very good job, he and his staff, with these players. It's been a very difficult season, and I think they've managed it very well and coached the team very well under very difficult circumstance. I'm not going to make any decisions on anything till the season's over. We're going to sit down and go over it. But again, I think Jeff's done a really good job. I've enjoyed working with him, and as of right now, I don't plan to make a change. So you read into that what you want.
And then just to follow up with that, as far as player development goes, is there a point of disappointment maybe that you have in that there haven't been too many guys through injuries, the state of this team, to the point to say, well, this guy's really grown this year, this guy's really grown this year, maybe there's not as much growth individually as we may have hoped for some of the core guys?
No, I think there's ups and downs, and it's been a struggle for a lot of guys, and that's okay. Part of life is struggling, and the guys who really benefit from it are the guys who are mentally tough enough to get through it. Again, I go back to my own career. It was not a linear path. There's some bumps along the way, and you learn from them and you get better.
Steve, Grand Rapids is going in a dogfight for the playoffs.
Mhm.
Will that have any impact
Yeah.
on whether or not
Yeah.
you call guys?
Yeah, we have to weigh. Like we want that team to make the playoffs. We want them to do well. So we also we want to win games here, but there's a priority on those young kids playing in the playoffs, and they're in a dogfight to make the playoffs. So we got to take that into account. We have 4 recalls that we can use. We got to be careful on how we use those, but ultimately, and that will weigh into our decisions on who we bring up and when.
Are you happy with the way Lindstrom has played?
Yeah, I think he's really learned a lot. I'm really pleased with how he's done throughout the season in Grand Rapids, and we brought him up. He's done very well. He's got a lot to learn, but he's a smart kid. He's a smart hockey player. He's very competitive, and he's more than held his own. So it really pleased him. No, I haven't talked to anybody at this point. Maybe I give that some thought, honestly, after the deadline here, what, if anything, I want to do. But I'm kind of comfortable in waiting till the end of the season on our restricteds and even the unrestricteds.
Steve, now that you've been here a full year, or almost a full year, do you feel like you have a complete grasp on what you have here talent-wise on all the levels? And sort of like what Nick said, is it maybe a little bit larger job than you thought now that you've been able to dive in for a year and see what you have?
Regardless of how the season's gone, no, I don't think it's any larger or smaller than what I thought. Really, my idea or plan, I guess if you want to call it that, hasn't changed. Felt coming in, the process we want to use. I do know, I like to think I do know the players. I know them personally now better. I definitely know them as hockey players a little bit better, or know them fairly well. And your assessment and your opinion it can change for better or for worse over time. And we had to make decisions at this trade deadline based on what we know today or what we think we know today. And then, we'll reevaluate maybe at the end of the season on July 1, and we'll start again next year.
Did you think about the,
phone calls today, or was there a lot of?
Yeah, there's always, a lot of phone calls on a whole variety of things. So yeah, you're kind of busy once just everybody gets settled in the morning, and you're on the phone all day, kind of just kicking around different ideas, exploring kind of last minute things, and depending on what you're trying to do, teams are going after the same guys virtually, and they're trying to make plan A and plan B, and so things can change as the day goes on. A couple of minor things, but nothing, major. Just a couple of minor things we had talked about, and for whatever reason, didn't come to fruition.
You mentioned Andreas got maybe the most interest.
Yeah.
Did Bernier get a lot of interest? And was it just like since you need a goalie next season?
What I was, I'm not going to talk about a specific player. Did this player get interest or that? I would just say in general on our goaltending, teams didn't call about our goaltenders, and we weren't looking to necessarily move them, but we didn't have any discussion with anyone on our goaltenders.
Speaking of goalies, the future, yes, and sees it forward, yes, and sees that defense now. But the goaltending thing seems very precarious moving forward. Does that maybe make you more open for a veteran goalie in unrestricted free agency? Because there's four that are available now.
Yeah, obviously we'll have to look at it. Jimmy Howard's contract is up at the end of the season. We have to make a decision. Do we bring Jimmy back? Do we explore the trade market? Do we explore free agency? So that's a decision we'll have to make and address.
You drafted a goalie, the last one, President Trophy winning goalie in the first round. There's a high-end goalie. I'm not trying to get you the specifics about it. But what's your philosophy on goalies in the draft? There's only 3 of them taken in the first round since you took Bassett last week.
Well, I'm honestly not sure I have a philosophy on it. Like, if there's a good goalie, if it's any player, if I feel he's the best player at that selection, I'm not opposed to it. Like, I don't know that it's any harder to predict what a goalie's going to be, a star or a defenseman or whatnot. So
It's the most important position on the ice.
yeah.
And yet it's rarely taken in the first round. And you did take a goalie.
Yeah, we took Andrei Vasilevsky 19th overall, and today that looks like it was a good selection. He's obviously a fantastic goaltender. So again, what's my philosophy? I don't know. Teams have generally, stayed away from it, but Carey Price was picked very high and is going to be in the Hall of Fame, I think, one day. Roberto Luongo, Marc-Andre Fleury, those guys were high picks and have done well. So I guess if you really believe they're special, then take them. And then I guess it ultimately comes down to who's there at that pick. And then, on a goaltender, just think for the goalies, one thing is it might take a little longer for them to get to the NHL. And I don't know if the facts or the statistics bear that out, but, as an 18-year-old centerman in the NHL or winger, you can make a lot of mistakes that you don't notice. As an 18-year-old goaltender in the NHL, like, any mistakes are magnified. So, I think the tendency is to be more cautious and go slower with goalies, and therefore you pick them later. I don't know.
I know how important all your draft picks are, especially that top pick, whatever it ends up being. Can you give us insight into your process? Like, how much time are you personally spending on the road scouting potential picks, really putting an emphasis on taking your best shot wherever you end up?
In general, I try to stay out of the draft. You can get dangerous, you get involved because just enough to screw it up. You don't see all the players. With where it looks like we'll be picking, you have a specific group of players that we kind of know who they are. Our first pick is coming out of there, whether we're picking 1, 4, 5, 3. We know that group. So in this situation, I have a chance to go out and see those kids, that group. It's hard if your first pick is 25th. Now you're talking about a group of 20 potential players. To go and see a guy once is dangerous. So to go and see 20 kids 5 or 6 times to know them, that's what the scouts. I simply don't have the time to do it. So I'll have some input into our first pick. Obviously, it's very important, but it's, we have a amateur scouting staff. That's what they're hired to do and paid to do, and I'll have input into it. And I'm going to watch these kids, and I'm going to know the player that we choose reasonably very well, actually.
Who makes the call? Like, some teams, the manager spend never makes the call, or is it you make it? Or?
I would say I'll let you know in 7 or 8 years who made the call. How's that? Maybe.
This is stating the obvious. I mean, I know you want the number 1 pick, but like even if you don't get it, you still have to come out with a difference maker. Like Colorado 64, they get
Yeah.
a car,
Yep.
right? Like,
Dallas got Heiskanen,
Right.
third. Those are difference makers.
like that's what you have to get out of it. Right?
Well,
This season,
Nick, here's what I would say. Sometimes, not every year those guys are there. Go back and look at the drafts. Honestly, you go back and look at the drafts, the top of the draft, and we say that here, we're going to build through the draft. We're going to build through the draft. Sometimes that guy's not there. It happens, and but we have to stick with it. And we're hoping, obviously, to find a difference maker. And looking at that group there, that's there at the top, we think we'll get a real good player, whether we're picking 1 or picking 4. So now that's today. In 7 or 8 years, we'll find out if they're a difference maker. I'm pretty sure, when Colorado picked Cale Makar, I look around this room and I'm guessing maybe Art, because he's a little bit more knowledgeable than all of us. But, honestly, who would you say, that guy's going to be a difference maker? Like, you don't really know. Like, teams had him really high, some didn't. Colorado made a heck of a pick.
So you played in both 85 and 16 with the worst record in franchise history and the 62 victory team. I mean, what's the...
I don't remember that 85, 86, I'm sorry.
But just going into the off-season, I mean, ultimately, once you experience what difference the playoffs make, like going into the off-season after such a bad season, what does that do on a player? Or do for a player?
So I assume some of these guys will go to the World Championships and play, and I hope as many that get invited go, and I hope some of them win a gold medal there, and that'll be a good thing. You know what? You feel sorry for yourself for a little while, and then you take a break, and then you get back in the gym and start training and get ready for next year. And things change in a hurry, and again, it's all part of your career, and it's all part of the process. So it doesn't do anybody good to feel sorry for themselves or us to feel sorry for ourselves as an organization. We know what we got to do, and I don't know what our record's going to be next year, but a lot of things will be different. Our team will be different. We're adding more prospects into the organization. Our salary cap situation is going to be a little bit more favorable, and we'll just kind of continue along the path. But for the players, it's tough. And again, I've gone through the experience, and after 85, 86 was my 3rd year in the league. It was a terrible year. I got injured personally. It was a terrible year for our team. Next year we went to the semifinals, and things changed in a hurry. Now I'm not predicting that for next year, but you get ready. Every year brings new hope, and every off season brings hope, and the players, you get psyched up and you dust yourself off, and away you go again.
Hey, Steve, I know you got bigger fish to fry in the plate. However, Ken Holland always said they would consider retiring Sergei Fedorov's number. You being the GM, do you think Sergei's number deserves to be retired? And would you ever, kind of tell the Illich family that maybe it's time for that? I know the fans.
It's not my place to make that decision, and it's not my place to tell the Illich family what to do. Ultimately, I think it's something that will get a lot of consideration.
Steve, obviously, you've been patient. You said patient from day one, since April 19th when you got this job last year. But I'm kind of curious, is there any kind of positive aspects to this season that Red Wing fans can look forward to? You see some building blocks here, maybe kind of a mini state of where the Red Wings are at this point.
I guess what I'm I think we're fortunate here that this is a hockey market, that people like the game, people play the game, their adults play it, the kids play it, boys and girls play it. So it's a hockey market, so there's interest. Obviously, they want the team to win, they want the team to do well. What I'm hoping people will embrace is the, Dylan Larkin, Anthony Mantha, Philip Zadina coming, Philip Hronik this year, embrace their careers and the development of their careers. So we watch Philip Zadina come in. We kind of expected him to be in the American League this year, and we brought him up out of kind of necessity, but he did very well, and it's encouraging. Unfortunately, he hurts his leg and he's out, but we're seeing progress there. We're seeing progress in Philip Hronik, the Dylans and Anthony before he got hurt. We're seeing progress. So we're hoping next year if we can add another one and each of these kids takes another step, it's all part of the process of us becoming a really good team again. And one day we look back on it and our fans look back on it and say, you know what, I remember when Zadina came in. I remember when Dylan came in, and those years, whatever we're in, 2019, 20, boy, what a year that was. But you guys struggled through it and appreciate the whole process. That's kind of what I'm hoping everyone embraces. And ultimately, and you've been at most of the games, the fan base has been pretty darn good. They've been extremely positive. They've been vocal. And for the most part in our home games, even although we would lose last night against Calgary, we hung in there and made it an entertaining hockey game. So anyway, what I'm, again, hoping people embrace this thing. Take some time. We've been through it before. The Red Wings did it in the 50s. We did it through the 80s and the 90s, and we're going to have to do it again. I look at the Pittsburgh Penguins, 1984, they draft Mario Lemieux first overall and build a program and win 2 Stanley Cups, and then they slip to the bottom again and they get Sidney Crosby and build this thing up, and they've won, 3 of them. Kind of what we're trying to do here as well, and in these cities that have been in it for a long time, they've seen the ups and downs, and we're seeing a new generation of hockey fans who haven't lived it yet, and now they're living it.
Is that the hardest thing to sell people on patience? I mean, you went through that year, and you guys had the best draft in the history of drafts in '89, but just knowing that it takes time.
It's very difficult to sell, and we got to show progress. And I don't know. I'm hoping the progress shows next year in wins and losses, but it will show in prospects in the system and in their development. But at some point, we have to show progress, and I'm confident we'll do that. All I can ask for is patience. I don't know what else to say. Honestly, I don't know what to tell people. But that's what we're doing. And again, I'm trying to bring up these situations, but the Colorado Avalanche today, we had those fantastic rivalries with them, and the Red Wings were able to keep it going with the Datsuk and Zetterberg era and that, and Colorado had a downtime. Now they've drafted the McKinnons and Kyle McCarrs, and now things are thriving there in Denver again, and that's another example of the ups and downs. And obviously we'd love to have the New England Patriot model, and maybe we had somewhat of that here for a while. How they can keep it at the top forever is phenomenal. And but the reality is this is how most organizations do it, and if we stick with it, we'll get it back. And I think the fan base, again, this is a hockey market that's been through it, kind of get it. And hopefully we can do it sooner or later, because people's patience are going to be tested, and I understand that.
Do you anticipate naming a captain for that season? You spoke wanting to serve.
That's the plan, yes.
Are you tired of people saying that the Red Wings aren't going to make that next step until they find the next Steve Yzerman?
I'm not tired of that. I don't really hear that much. Honestly, I was here for a long time. We didn't win anything. We need the next Lidstrom and Fedorov and Larionov and Shanahan and Datsuk and Zetterberg. So you need a bunch of good players, and I wasn't Sidney Crosby. I wasn't Mario Lemieux. I wasn't Connor McDavid. Those guys, that's a whole different level. We can get one of those guys. That'd be awesome. But we need a bunch of good players. And ultimately, I look at the St. Louis Blues last year, a fantastic team. bunch of really, really good players. And ultimately, whether we get I don't know what the next Steve Yzerman is, but you need a bunch of good players to win, and that's what we're going to do. So.
But you would agree that the franchise began to turn around when they drafted you?
The franchise turned around when the Ilitches bought the team, and I was part of the rebuild. That's it, Art. Like, I'm not sitting up here. I enjoyed my career. I'm glad we had a lot of success, but I didn't turn this franchise around. I was part of it. You know. Pardon me? Yep. He is a talented, strong, good, I think what we consider a good two-way player. We saw him a lot in the American Hockey League play for the Marlies, seen a little bit in the NHL. He's still relatively young, and he's 24 years of age. We think he could be a player, like, you claim him off waivers, so it's just a dollar figure that there's some upside to him that he can help our lineup. We got some visa issues with him, so I'm not exactly sure when he's going to be in the lineup, but potentially for the rest of this year and into the start of next year, provide a little bit of offense, a little bit of good two-way play that we can generate a little bit more, or generate more goals. I'm not going to say it's 100 or 200 goals, but just another player that can help create some offense and generate it. But I think he's a real good two-way player, a strong kid that we think has a chance to be a regular in the NHL. Joe Veleno has had a real good year. His numbers aren't great. He's played in all situations. He's played regular. He's played a lot. I think the coaching staff there has done a really good job with being patient with him, allowing him to play, allowing him to play a significant role there. And I think he's really thrived. Had a chance to go watch him at the World Juniors, and I thought he did really well as a 19-year-old in the tournament, one of the older guys. He really kind of took charge and really asserted himself well. So it's been a really challenging year for him. But I think he's really embraced it, and he's really done well. His numbers aren't fantastic, but he's really developing as a hockey player. So I think it's been really good. Moritz Seider, again, we're really pleased with his development. He's playing a lot. Start of the season, I don't know if he would have averaged 17 or 18 minutes. Maybe, I look at the ice time recently. He's been 25, even 27 minutes a game. An 18-year-old D-man in that league is tough. He's playing in all situations again, and he's touching the puck. We watched him play a lot last year on the men's team in Germany. Didn't get a lot of PP time. And here in GR, he's getting on there, and he's got handling the puck, and you see his play along the blue line evolving, the offensive part of his game coming, and being able to log those big minutes is great experience for him. Michael Rasmussen, he missed time. He had a good start to the season. He's missed some time with a back injury. Got back at Christmas, and he's playing regular, and just kind of grinding it out. He's a first-year pro. I'm really pleased with how they're all doing. They're helping our team down there. They're playing important roles, and they've kind of embraced it, and they're not sitting there. You mentioned 3 first-round picks, kind of sitting there with a sense of entitlement. They're there working hard and doing the things necessary to become good NHLers. I'm not sure. He's out right now. I'm not sure if he's going to be out long term. I don't think it's long term. So it's something to consider, but I would say to you, don't sit waiting for it to happen. It's something we have to consider, but till he's back in the lineup, not something I'm going to think about.
Is it just your philosophy? Is it value just so you can sort of see what you have, but also you can see what the NHL is all about and how much farther it has to go? Is that like?
Yeah, I think those are all legitimate. There's a lot of reasons. There's a few reasons, good reasons, two that you just mentioned, to potentially bring him in for a look. There's also valid reasons for just leaving them where they are and letting them do their thing, So take it all into account, and if it comes a time we have to make a decision, we will. But right now, again, all those kids are doing really well. They're playing a lot of minutes and significant roles, and they're in a dogfight to make the playoffs, and we want that team to make the playoffs. There's a lot of value in everyone in there playing in the playoffs.
So is there a possibility, or do you think that maybe no one's going to be called up for
Well, the only guys that the 9 game is correct me if I'm wrong. It's Moritz and Joe Valeno because they're the junior. Their contracts potentially slide, so that they're the only ones that would pertain to that. We'd have to take that into consideration. I would say I don't want to give you an answer right now. I'd prefer to let those kids know what I'm thinking, as opposed to you letting them know what I'm thinking.
Steve, just 10 months into your job, I mean, I see you in the general managers through the games. Like, what's going through your mind when you see this team, this product on the ice? Like, are you pleased with the progress or the performance of certain young players? Kind of, what are your thoughts when you're sitting out there?
My thoughts vary. Honestly, I try to watch when I watch games. I'm watching individual players and trying to, assess their development, how they're progressing, and that goes kind of for all our guys. Whether it be an older player trying to decide, are we going to bring them back? A restricted free agent, where they fit in, what we're going to have to pay them, how we can help them. My own thoughts on their play, how we can help them. So that's generally what I do. Obviously, we all are competitive. We want to win. We get wrapped up in the wins and the losses, the calls for and against. We get caught up in all that, but I try to assess individually, and then you talk to your coach about your team and players and systems, and they ask for feedback. So I trying maybe more this year than others is to kind of watch how we play. And Jeff, we talk a lot about our team, about our players, and about the way we play, and so it's kind of forced me to pay a little bit more attention to some areas of the game that the last few years I haven't really watched for. Sorry.
The Red Wings closed out strong last year. I won 7 out of 10 games. Do you have an expectation for these last 18 games? Is there something you would like to see, or is it basically playing out the string?
Well, it's definitely not playing out the string like you go out. They're naturally competitive guys, and they want to go out and they want to play well. So individually, each and every one of them has a lot to play for. Guys are fighting for jobs. I'm also there. I have to decide who we're bringing back and who we're not bringing back. That goes from some of our unrestricted free agents and restricted free agents, for that matter, and guys that are under contract. So what do we have, 18 left, 19 left, something like that. A lot of how they conduct themselves, how they perform over the end of the season is going to kind of finalize the decision for me. So it's kind of, our players are going to be judged on their character, on how they handled this down the stretch, and then ultimately individually, whether they're playing for a spot on the team, a spot on the roster, playing guys, or need new contracts. There's a lot for them to play for, but ultimately, they also better have pride, and I think they do. It's I think again, having been in it as a player, it's been quite a while. But I remember you go out on the ice at the start of the game, and you can have this attitude: this game means nothing. Well, 10 minutes of the game, you're down 3-0, and now you're like, oh, this game does mean something to me, and now you're digging yourself out of a hole. So we're trying to impress upon the guys, like you have a lot to play for. You got your job to play for. You got your pride to play for. You got, it's a business as well for these guys. You got your contract to play for, spot on the roster next year, a spot on the team. Again, they're being assessed all the time. That's just the nature of sports, is every player is being assessed on everything they do all the time.
Is that what you watch for? Because I see you a lot in the family room watching practice. Is that what you watch for? Some of the guys have said, it's different for you up there.
Honestly, I watch practice. Like I'm not trying to make a statement or anything. I watch practice. Just to watch practice. Like we're all there. Like I don't really sit up there thinking, I'm going to have an impact on the players or they're going to notice I'm here. I don't do that. It just so happens that that's a comfortable spot for us, and it happens to be right over the ice, right over the goalie's shoulders. So, but we're not trying to make any statements for them at all. We're just, it's fun, whether it's Nick Cronwall or Ryan Martin or Yuri Fisher or whoever it is on our staff. We sit up there and we watch practice and we talk about hockey. I think Cody Goluboff will be here. There's another player we claimed off waivers. I think he will be here tonight, so he'll be available, I think, tomorrow, assuming everything goes okay with his visa. We expect it to. In all likelihood, we'll call up one more D-man. We sent Gustav Lindstrom down to make him eligible for the playoffs. Checking on the health of a couple of players, but in all likelihood, we'll bring one up.
Steve, is Gagne going to be an everyday player from here on out for the rest of the season?
That is the plan, yes, to come in. And again, we've got to get a visa for him. I don't think that one's going to take too long. So I'm not sure we'll have it for tomorrow night, but hopefully have it here sooner than later, possibly as early as Thursday. I don't know. Timoshov's visa looks like it's going to take a while longer. So I'm not sure when he'll be here. But, yeah, the plan is for all three guys to be available and ready to play. And, an added bonus for Sam Gagne, having another right shot forward in our lineup. We only have Luke Glendening as the one, so we'd like to get him in there because it would help. Okay? All right. Pardon me? Every Monday after the trade deadline, I'm all for it. Okay?
I'm gonna hold you to it.
All right. Thank you.